Okay, hi, I'm host Eric. I'm here with famous person Doak and Mahogany, and this is like take three of this because of some technical difficulties, mostly my fault, it appears. Um, and I wanted to get right back into the gun control issue, and famous person Doak here expressed that he doesn't feel as though there's any reason to have additional gun control legislation or background checks. Can you give me some of the reasons you've indicated as to why you think that's the case?
Certainly. So the first is, of course, skepticism of authority, and also in regards to our constitutional republic and the Bill of Rights. The Second Amendment is clear that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be opinion subjectively, rather. It's that these background checks are always used in a way that it's meant to infringe upon your rights. It's always meant to be harder in some way to exercise your rights.
Correct. I mean, that's what
Just
they.
wanting one thing, they and they always want a mile. Like there's this it's more of an infographic that it depicts a comic as a man just sitting at a table with a big old cake, and somebody comes around saying that we need reasonable gun control legislation, and in doing so, they always end up taking a part of the cake, and then it eventually ends up at a point where there's nothing but crumbs, and every time this person who keeps taking this cake is always saying, after they don't get what they want initially, they're saying, let's compromise, and they always end up with more of this cake. And then this
Right.
person who started off with this big cake at the table is just frustrated to no end because they've lost their cake and it was always their cake to begin with.
Right.
So, in regards to that, I'm always skeptical of anything that is pro gun control.
Right. And these arguments always do tend to boil down to a property rights issue. Um, it, that's the thing that's the thing that gets lost in the muddle of the debate is hold on. You keep fighting over how much of my cake you're going to take, but it's my fucking cake.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And nobody seems to remember that this is a kind of like an important point here as you fight over how much of my fucking cake you want to steal. Um, you know, so I obviously we're on the same page philosophically here. One question that I'd ask though is why is it that this position is what if the cake is a lie? Well, in this case, the cake isn't anything except the absence of coercion. It's the absence of somebody else being qualified to have what I'm not qualified to have, right? Because ultimately we're saying, well, the government has the monopoly on use of force. Okay, so therefore they should have all the means of force? No, they have the monopoly on the legitimate use of force most of the time. But there are instances where there are exceptions to that, and regardless, if I'm not qualified to have a gun, then why would I assume some other party is more qualified to have a gun, right? Why is a politician or a police officer or some other person who has a government job more qualified? Why is it okay for them to have a gun? Somebody's going to have guns, right? It's not like nobody's going to have them.
I concur with everything you've just said.
Yeah. So, but here's the thing: if I were going to make the argument from the other side, I would say guns pose a unique challenge to the libertarian perspective on the grounds that they exist solely for the purpose of killing, and that the right to life subsumes other rights. To the extent that an object exists only for that its only viable usage is to remove from somebody that fundamental right, then it runs afoul of the foundation of libertarianism. And thus it's okay
Okay.
to limit such an object. What if I were to make that argument?
My rebuttal will be that you can use it as a means to prevent an even greater initiation of force, and you're not the one that is initiating aggression against the other. You are merely defending yourself. And I would say that would, it certainly keeps, I would say.
Okay, well, what if I were to point to society like England or something, where even the cops didn't have guns, and say, well, isn't that preferable? Because look at how many fewer gun violence deaths per 1,000 people they have in England or whatever.
Yeah, look at the rise in violent crime after they got rid of all the guns. Stabbings, I'm sure, are huge. I can only imagine what it's like to be unable to defend yourself against a home invader.
We've really become fond of the knife here in Britain. Yeah, we like to stab people now. They're taking away the guns, and we've taken up to stabbing. Down to the lorry station we go, a stabbing left, and a stabbing right. Yeah, well, I have no idea what the stats actually show. I know what
I
the
don't remember
arguments
them
are.
anyway.
I,
I try to argue from principles when I'm not equipped with the facts.
right. Don't bring a knife to a gunfight is a good piece of advice. I mean, the thing is, I don't want to live in a world where I have to defend myself with a gun, but that doesn't mean that I want to live in a world where nobody can defend themselves with a gun, and nobody wants to defend themselves with a gun. I like the sort of unequal peace that we have, right? Where I can kind of ride on the coattails of the gun owners. I'm glad to know that there are some gun people out there around.
Yeah, move to Plano, Texas if you want to be safe.
Is that a very safe place? A lot of people with guns down there, huh?
Oh, you cut it off pretty bad there.
Yeah, well, I don't. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's a fun one in regards to arguing. Yeah, Plano, Texas is a fun example for arguing against gun control because it just disproves the correlation that the presence of guns is inherently going to have violence associated with it. But Plano, Texas has the highest gun ownership in the United States, to the best of my memory, while having the lowest violent crime. An armed society is a polite society, they say.
Yeah. Well, I was always struck by the shift in our understanding of our relationship to law enforcement as being evidenced in our TV shows. So that when I was a kid and they showed a show like Bonanza or some of those old West shows, right? And they'd always have some scene where the bad guys hold up somewhere on his land and the sheriff comes by and the bad guy is armed with his shotgun and he says, well, Sheriff, you ain't better than not step 1 foot here on this land, Sheriff. You come back with a warrant, you don't come back at all. And he's got his gun right there and he's chewing and spitting tobacco out and the sheriff's like, that's how you want to go, Jed. That's how you want to go. I'm going down to the county courthouse tomorrow. I'm going to pick that up and I won't be back here. And then Jed's like, you do that then, Sheriff. You do that. You know? And it's like, nowadays, if you stood up on your porch with a gun and said to the sheriff, you come back with a warrant now, you get a SWAT team thrown at you, you know? We need more gun duels in the street. Yeah, I'm opposed to gun duels in the street, right? I don't want Old West times, but at the same time, I like the fact that there was sort of an assumption that, of course, I'm going to go get a warrant from the county courthouse, and yeah, it's going to take a couple days. There's no urgency because you're here on your land, and we're assuming you're going to stay here. And, that's before cars, I guess. But I mean, I think it's a fair distinction to make that if you had a gun and you're standing on your porch and you said to the cops, "Come back with a warrant," they'd probably engage in a gun battle with you. I would assume, don't you? Okay, well, we may have lost.
To respond with all the interruptions there are.
Oh, are you experiencing a lot of interruptions too? Actually did pretty well in this video in terms of you've been pretty not cutting out for most of the video, but I suspect that you're experiencing cutting out on your end, and so it's hard to hear me. I hear you typing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, can you offer some response to whatever it is you were able to hear there? We'll just go from there. I'll shut up, you talk, and hopefully we'll get as much of you as we can. If you're coming in clear on this end, it'll sound fine on the video.
All right. Well, what it sounded like to me is you were talking about how you don't want, you miss the idea of the fundamental rights that were lost West, but you wouldn't want to necessarily have times today be like that. And that's about as good as I heard it. So
Well, I said, I think in modern times, if you were to be on your porch with a gun and said, come back with a warrant, the cops would immediately start shooting at you. Do you think that's accurate?
yes,
Mahogany, do you think that's accurate? Okay, do you think it should be that way or not? Because I don't think it should be that way. I don't know. I think you're cutting out again, unfortunately.
mm, best I can here. I'm hardlined and everything, so
So you're like, no, it shouldn't be like that. Of course they should go get a warrant. I tend to agree, unless there's exigent circumstances like somebody's trapped inside as a hostage, maybe. You know, if you got exigent circumstances. But see, the cops always will exploit anything. They'll exploit anything
yeah,
you give them, any loophole.
yeah, like oh,
Okay, I'm sorry,
like you said,
folks.
in the case of extenuating circumstances,
Okay, we are cutting out left and right. I think I'm going to stop this video right now and ask famous person Doak to leave and come back, and sometimes that fixes the problem. And sometimes it's as simple as that. So if we can try that, then we'll try recording in a second video. Maybe we can talk about some other corollary topics if you'd like, if you're still available and interested. For now, this has been host Eric. Thanks to famous person Doak and famous person Mahogany checking out and hopefully resuming in a little bit.